Clara was the Dean of Academic Affairs at a major university, which basically meant her life was entirely ruled by strict schedules, boardrooms, and authority. But on a freezing November evening, none of that mattered. She was stuck in the darkest corner of the campus parking lot, staring at a dead dashboard. When she turned the key, all she got was a hollow clicking sound. Her phone had died 10 minutes earlier. The cold was moving fast through her coat, but honestly, the weight inside her mind was worse. Earlier that morning, Clara had officially canceled a major research grant for an elderly professor. He was her former mentor, but he had fallen behind on his work due to illness. It was the correct decision on paper, but it felt incredibly cruel. Now, standing alone in the dark, her administrative power felt completely useless. The campus was empty, the night classes had already started, and nobody was coming to help her. Then, she heard a loud, metallic rumble. A beat-up white pickup truck with a mismatched passenger door pulled up nearby. A man stepped out into the cold. He was wearing a faded denim jacket, and his hands were rough and callous from years of hard labor. He didn't ask Clara who she was or what she did. He just saw her open car hood and her frozen hands. "Battery's dead," he said quietly. "I've got cables." He walked to the back of his truck, grabbed the jumper cables, and pulled his truck front to front with her sedan. He worked quickly, ignoring the freezing wind. As he clipped the heavy metal clamps onto her battery, he glanced at his watch. "Got to keep moving," he said, almost talking to himself. "My daughter Lily is 8. She's at her aunt's house right now. She gets really anxious if I'm not home by 6 to make her dinner. She likes everything placed perfectly on her plate." "I'm sorry to slow you down," Clara said. "It's no trouble," he replied. "Nobody should be left out in this weather." He checked the connections carefully to make sure everything was safe. When the engine finally started up, Clara reached into her purse to give him some money. But the man was already rolling up his cables. He just gave her a polite nod, climbed into his truck, and drove away before she could even say thank you. The next morning, Clara's world went right back to normal. She was sitting at the head of a massive conference table, surrounded by HR directors. They were running final interviews for the university's new facilities supervisor. It was a big job with a stable salary and full state benefits. Clara looked at the file for the next applicant, and it didn't look good. The resume was mostly short-term construction jobs, and there was a massive 2-year gap with 0 employment history. The HR director next to her shook his head and made a red mark on the folder. He whispered to Clara that the candidate just didn't show enough consistency for a university job. Then the door opened, and the applicant walked in. He was wearing a clean, freshly pressed button-down shirt that was a bit too tight for his shoulders. Clara looked up, and her breath caught. It was the man from the parking lot. His name on the file was David Miller. He recognized her instantly, his eyes widening for just a second before his face went completely calm and professional. The interview started, and the directors began asking difficult questions about budgets, inventory, and managing teams. David answered honestly, without trying to sound fancy. Finally, the director asked him directly about the 2-year gap in his resume. David didn't make up an excuse. "My wife passed away," David said quietly. "I needed to be there every single day when my daughter Lily got off the school bus. I took whatever odd jobs I could find that fit around her schedule. I couldn't leave her with strangers while she was grieving." The HR director tapped the table. He told David that the university needed absolute reliability, especially during winter storms when things break down. He said the file just didn't prove David could handle that kind of pressure alone. Clara looked at the folder, and then she looked at David. The paperwork didn't say anything about who he actually was. It didn't mention that after a long day of hard work, he would stop in the freezing dark to help a stranger for free, all while keeping a perfect mental clock for his little girl. "I'm going to interrupt here," Clara said clearly. The room went completely quiet. "This job requires someone who can handle a crisis without being supervised. Mr. Miller has proven he can do exactly that under extreme conditions." The rules allow us to value real-world problem-solving just as much as a corporate history. I am approving a competency variance for this candidate. David Miller is hired." When the meeting ended, David stood up. He looked across the long table at Clara. He didn't make a scene. He just placed his hand over his heart and gave her a small, slow nod. "Thank you, ma'am," he said. "Welcome to the team, Mr. Miller," Clara replied. 3 weeks later, Clara was back in her office, watching the first snow of the year fall outside. On her desk was David's signed contract. Tucked inside it was a small schedule adjustment she had quietly approved, letting David start his shift an hour early so he could always be home in time for the school bus. It took her 5 seconds to sign, but it changed a family's entire life. A few miles away, in a warm little kitchen, David was standing at the stove, making grilled cheese sandwiches. His old denim jacket was hanging up, replaced by a dark blue university uniform with his name stitched on the front. Lily was sitting at the table, carefully lining up a row of smooth stones she had collected by the campus creek. "Are they triangles today, Daddy?" Lily asked. "Perfect triangles, Lily." David smiled, putting the plate down. He sat down across from her, the constant worry about money completely gone. Outside, the winter wind hit the window, but inside, the kitchen was quiet, warm, and safe.